good quality video. Yeah, we can.
You might have to do that for sure.
Right, there we go. And we've actually streaming it live today, so hi and welcome to the Parenting in a Digital Age seminar. We're very lucky to have Marcie, Hebert here. I'm Andrew Chu, the tech coordinator, tech coordinator at AIS. And Marcie and I were just talking about, hey, what do you think the parents want to know and everything yesterday. I think I sort of charged myself with the task of going, it seems like we want to help parents help their children think. So I sort of charged myself with the task of getting parents to think a little bit to begin with. So just before Marcie takes stage, I'm going to ask you to look at the people just to the left and right of you. And if you don't know each other, then please do introduce yourself. Make sure you have at least one or two people to talk to. And the big question that I want to get our brains thinking about right now is, how is learning different for our children from when we were children? So how has learning changed? In what ways is it different? I'm going to give you a minute and a half to sum up some ideas about how we all think that learning has changed from when we were a kid to now our kids learn.
This is a digital world now.
Yeah, so can you have a chat with the 2 or 3 people around you? We'll give you about a minute and a half.
We're gonna make 2 today.
Even though they are looking at we only have books. A lot of stuff in
And as we go through any questions, we're going to be able to discuss. I want to hear what's on your mind.
She's only she likes
I'm going to give you a website that I use with my students. If you go to this website, and it's online courses. Using great thinking, and it's a great website.
All right, I'm going to throw it all together. Are we ready, Marcie?
And to those that didn't get around to, hello, I'm Marcie. Don't try to go with Hebert.
I'm from Louisiana.
Oh, hey, support.
We came from Baton Rouge.
Okay, I'm from La Place. You're gonna know where that is. Not many people will, but you'll know where it is.
Okay, so this is Marcie.
Hi.
Hand it over.
Hi. I chose this picture because this is the world we live in. It's not the world we grew up in. It certainly wasn't the world I grew up in. I grew up with no computers in the classroom. And by 6th grade, we got those first computers with the huge floppy, the real floppy disks. Two of them. Yes!
You're a lot younger. I didn't have a computer until I was in secondary school.
Okay. I'm okay, I'll be honest. I'm 40 years old. Well, I'm 40 years old. Well, I like you. You can stay right by me. Some days 40 doesn't feel so young. Like when we're climbing stairs to see Big Buddha, 40 didn't feel young anymore. 40 felt old. I was feeling really old that day. But this wasn't the world we came into. It wasn't even close to the world we came into. These are just some of my devices. You recognize all the stickers? My watch, I don't go anywhere without it. The iPad I use, my phone. When we go to conferences and they ask how many devices, I'm usually in the 4 or more category, because my Chromebook's not in that picture. Okay? And being a tech person for my school, I have to be able to use a little of everything. So we're trying to parent our kids through something we didn't grow up in. And so the world's kind of struggling with what do we do to help our kids in this world. So today's about suggestions. I have a lot of resources for you. I'm not coming to you saying we have one right answer. Because some of these answers are going to depend on your family and what works for your family. And I'll share some things that work for my family. Please ask questions, discussions. It's okay to disagree. I'm telling you that up front. You know, if you go, no, that doesn't work for me, that's okay too. How could you take that and make it work for you becomes the question. So I'll start with a little bit about me. This is my family, including my amazing husband, who is pouting at home because he wanted to be here with me today in Hong Kong, not because he wanted to come watch me present, but because he wanted to be exploring Hong Kong. And unfortunately, he could not get vacation. He didn't have enough seniority to get this week off. So he's not real happy that he's at home right now. But he does a great job of taking care of our 2 boys while I travel. And I've been doing a lot more traveling and talking to teachers in different schools and working with teachers. Those are my 2 boys, and the oldest is Patrick. Patrick is a sophomore in high school. I'm very proud of my Patrick. As I was on my way here, I got a message that Patrick was named Student of the Month at his school. So it was like, yay! It's not what I did. He's just really an easy kid. The little one's going to challenge me. This is my darling little boy. But my darling little boy is going to be the one that's going to push every boundary that we ever set in our family. I have 2 different kids. The oldest, if I draw this line on the floor and I tell him, do not cross that line, he's staying over here. Hayden is going to see how far across that line he can get and dance. And go, look at me now, Mom. Okay, that's my second child. So they're 2 different kids. So we're going to have to parent the 2 of them a little differently. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all situation. And that's the newest member of our family. We just adopted a puppy, which I guess that makes me a little crazy for dealing with a puppy right now, but that's okay. I've been very blessed over the past 4 years, and yesterday I got to share my journey with your teachers. And I got to tell them about how I went from being somebody in my classroom to somebody who's now standing in a school in Hong Kong talking to parents and teachers and working hand in hand with them. I've been working through different certifications, and I am a level 2 certified educator through Google. I am certified by Google as a trainer. So I go out and train teachers in schools how to take Google tools and how to leverage them for education, not just to say it's a tool. And I just got back from Google, which I'm really excited about. I kind of kept looking around thinking, really, you picked me? I was part of a cohort of 35 educators from around the world. We had to compete for our slot, and I was selected to go, and we each had to propose problems in education we want to work on. And so that's what got me the branding of a certified innovator by Google. I work with some other Louisiana teachers. We do a monthly Twitter chat for teachers around different topics in education. And I'm also one of the leaders for the Google Educator Group for Louisiana, where we resource for each other to help us leverage Google tools. Yes, ma'am, I'm right outside of New Orleans. I flew here from New Orleans.
Okay.
So, and this is a great group of my friends in New Orleans. we organized something called Ed Camps, and I know your teachers are familiar with the Ed Camp model. So many times as teachers, they would bring in somebody to do PD, and that PD worked for some of us, but not all of us, or it didn't give us what we needed as teachers to continue to grow. And so Ed Camp is run for teachers, by teachers, and it's free, which is a teacher's favorite work. Okay, and so we were able to leverage that and get teachers in and let them have the conversations they need to keep improving their classroom. So I teach at St. Joan of Arc Catholic School. We are right outside, I'm about 30 minutes outside of the proper city of New Orleans. And I am the computer teacher for 4th through 7th. They recently moved our 8th graders to high school. Don't take me there. It wasn't a good thing, but they took our 8th graders off. So I have 4th through 7th graders that I teach directly. And then I am the technology department, both fix it, buy it, install it, train on it. So I'm a little bit of all over the place at school. And we're under the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So I want to show you a video I showed your teachers yesterday, because I think this frames what we're talking about. Those are credits. So, yeah. So, how does that strike you? Because I saw a lot of stuff in there that's almost scary. And that's what we're bringing our kids and we're trying to raise them. Well, you know, my husband is the milkman. Okay, he works for a company, he delivers the milk from a dairy. His job is driving a truck and running a route. You know, we're looking at, one of the things that struck me in there was the one about depression being such an issue. Well, is that because, and I don't know the answer, but is that because we've become so tied into our devices that we're not connecting anything. Anything strike you? I'd love to hear what hit you. What kind of got you right here as a parent, made you go, oh.
And also the fact that a lot of people will lose their jobs because they
Right.
won't be that much.
Right. So in a minute, we're going to talk about what implications that has for education and for your kids and some ways to look at that differently. That does. It scares me too, though. And this is the world we're trying to send kids in. And as teachers, we don't come to work every day because of the paycheck, or at least I know we don't in the U.S. I promise you, I'm in a private Catholic school. I don't show up for the paycheck. We're there because we love kids and we want the best for them. And the challenge now is, how do we make the best of this for kids as we're also trying to adjust to what's coming? And it's changing so rapidly. You know, and teachers struggle. They're like, well, I learned this new tool, but now there's 5 more. Yeah, I know. So pick what you can learn and work on it, and we continue to make the changes. This is really fast. We have to work a little more incrementally because you can't learn it all in a day. But how are we going to take care of these kids? Because if we keep teaching these children the way we were taught, we are doing them a disservice. I firmly, with all of my heart, believe that. Let's see if it's going to let me out. John Dewey said, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. And I think that's even more relevant as the times are moving faster. We can't teach them the way we were taught. So I told you I'd show my age, and I wasn't bad at it. This is where I got my information. And if you recognize that, that is a set of World Book encyclopedias, and I specifically picked the 1982 edition. I'll tell you why. I am a teacher's child, which is why I swore I would never teach. And yet here I am today. Okay? I wasn't going to do it because people would tell me, oh, your mom was my favorite teacher, and you're like, thanks. Okay? So I wasn't going to teach. But my mom, the teacher, knew how important information was. Because when I was a kid, your parent had to put you in the car and shuttle you off to the library. And you would go and you would take out the correct edition of World Book, and you might have to cross-reference if you're lucky. And you would pull out the book and you would write your report. Well, I was really lucky. My mom bought the 1982 set. So we had that in our house. We also had the little traditions and customs ones. I love those books. They're great. Probably read cover to cover each because I was a nerd. And that's okay. But that was how we learned. So when I wrote a report in school, everything was circa 1982. Because we weren't going to the library every day I had to do a report. We were going to go to the World Book. And I remember when this came out, some of you may look, some of you going, yeah! Encarta came out, and we were like, woohoo, I got it all in a CD. Wow! And then each year they came out with a new one. It wasn't so hard to get. You know, you replace your computer, you get into Encarta, it's sweet. Life was getting easier. Then came this. World Book Online. It was all online, and they updated it. Score, even less work. But here's the thing. Now we have this. We absolutely have this. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to hear some things from my point of view and my philosophy. I teach my children how to use Google. And you're looking at me going, but we all use Google. Marcie, we just type stuff in and we hit enter and it's great. The problem is getting them to the information they need. Quality information. I teach them how to use Google. Because if you can use Google, you can look incredibly smart. You see, my students are fooled, and I keep trying to unfool them, but they won't listen to me. They think I know everything, and I'm going, please, there's a lot I don't know. And they're like, but Xavier, you can figure anything out. Yes, I can, because of Google. I'm good at using Google. I know how to search. And so I try to teach my children how to search. And I've heard this argument in education. Well, we use this safe search website. That's great. But let's talk about reality. Yes. When our children leave our classrooms, what are they using to search? They're going to Google. So why would we not teach them the right way to use it? Because we can safe search all we want, and that's not a bad thing. Please don't take me as saying it's bad. But if we don't show them the right way to use the thing they're going to use anyway, it's not always the best way to go. And I've had discussions with people about why I want it to be safe. I understand that. And as a parent, we want to wrap them in cotton and foam, especially that little one. He's going to probably need fireproof padding too. Okay? We want to protect them. But we also have to educate them. And it used to be we just had to educate them on curriculum subjects, but now we have to educate on technology. And the schools can do so much, but as parents, a lot of it comes back to us. And what is it we want them to do, know, be able to do? So there's a lot of discussion these days about 21st century skills. There's even some discussion about the fact that maybe we should stop using the words 21st century skills since we're where we are already. These are the things they tell us they're looking for in children. They want critical thinking, collaborating, creative thinking, communicating. Now, we did some of those things in school. However, collaborating when we were in school looked like your teacher partnered you up with somebody and you had a discussion. Collaborating now looks like getting an expert, Google Hangout or Skype, into your classroom. You don't have to be the expert on everything anymore. I don't know about you, but this is the way I felt when I was growing up. I felt like our teachers were on a pedestal, and they knew everything, and we didn't question the teacher. How many of you are feeling that one? Yeah.
Yes.
They were the know-it-all, they were the be-all, they were the beginning and end of knowledge. But in our world, that's changing. I don't have to know how to do everything perfectly, but I should be able to find people who can help me to do it. And as kids, we want to give them that skill. We want them to have the ability to reach out to someone and communicate with someone who can help them figure out what they're trying to do. And I'll show you some examples of that as we go further on. That's not enough, though. They need literacy skills. Information literacy. We all needed that. We needed to go to the card catalog and dig through the smell of the card catalog and pull out the card.
Yeah.
Okay? We all have very vivid memories of these things. They resonate with us. I don't think our kids will understand that because, electronics don't have those smells and the same sensory things. We had that. Media literacy. We learned how to pop the VCR tape in, right? Okay? It worked back then. But now our kids have to be able to find the right piece of media, whether that be a song, a video, a podcast. All this stuff we didn't have access to. Technology literacy. And as parents, we struggle with this one. Because our kids are so fast and they're not scared of it at all. They jump in and we're back there going, oh, I don't know. Okay? I tell my teachers all the time, they're like, I was afraid to hit the button. And I'm like, you won't break it, I promise. If it breaks, just come with me to the computer. We'll figure it out. You are, and it's okay. And you know what I found, even as a teacher? Sometimes we need permission. We need permission to try things and screw it up, even with technology. We need permission to press the button and know that even if it messes up, somebody's going to help us come back from that. I keep telling my teachers that. I promise you're not going to break it. And that's still not enough. You need life skills. Companies want a different brand of person than they used to. They want them to be flexible. They want them to take the initiative. They don't always want a boss to have to go to a kid and say, okay, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and it's due by this date. They want you to be able to say, look, I saw this issue and I dealt with it. Let me show you what I did. Social skills. Those are going to be an interesting change. Because they're not only, I find our kids do this. They spend their time like this with a device, and they forget how to have a conversation with each other. Look around you next time. I challenge you when you leave here today, the next time you go even into a restaurant, look around you. Marlon and I had this conversation last night. Marlon's been taking care of me and making sure I'm fed in the right place and that I'm not lost somewhere wandering. I'm actually decent with directions. I have to say this place is laid out where I can mostly find my way. But we were watching. We had this conversation about devices. And if you watch in a restaurant, watch when a family near you sits down. What immediately happens? Shoop. Right in the face. Okay? We're going to talk about that too. Productivity. You got to be able to produce work. You got to. Leadership. They don't want the one who's always going to stay back. They want somebody who's going to know when to step in and take some control and help guide things. They will want people who can step back when they need to. This is what they're looking from a child. So if we keep educating, I know a lot of these skills had nothing to do with what happened when I was educated in school, because our world has changed. So this is what they're looking for out of children. There was a recent study, and I wish I remembered the company, or not study, but an announcement that was published in the U.S. right before I left, saying, and they named a company, a large company, and they said this company is no longer going to necessarily require a college degree for a job. I'm in that same spot myself because I debated. I don't have my master's degree. I've been teaching my kids and learning as I go. And I looked at the one I would go get would be the technology one for teachers. And I started looking at the degree. First, it's going to cost a lot of money that I have to pull away because I, like you, pay tuition for 2 kids in private school on a teacher's salary. It's not pretty. So do I take that money from my family's budget and go to school for a degree that right now, I looked at one of my friends who recently finished and I said, okay, here's what I need you to tell me because I'm weighing whether this is worth it for me or not. And she said, what's your question? I said, how much would be new to me? And she said, Marcie, there's one class that part of it might be a touch new because it's a lot of the networking and the background stuff, which in reality is not what I really want to do anyway. She said, most of them, you would be able to sail through the class. She said, it's stuff you've been doing and beyond already. So I have to decide, do I pull that money from my family at a time when money's trying to get these kids finished school? For a degree that's stuff that I already know how to do and more? I can't make that make sense financially for my family right now. You know, they're going to start looking at us based on our qualifications, on certifications, on the things that we show we can do. Those are the things they're going to be looking for. So I love these. These are sketch notes, taking ideas and putting them into a visual drawing. One of the things we talk about now in education circles is a growth mindset, that we shouldn't celebrate failure right when it happens. It's after. We have to reflect on the failure and move forward. And sharing that learning is what we should celebrate. You see, we always think of failure as a bad thing. And that's going to have to shift some. Because the companies that are starting up and really doing well, they fail. They fail a lot and they fail often. I got to spend 2.5 days on Google's campus, which was like a major, like I was having nerd moments galore. Okay, you know, to be at Google and learning with Googlers was amazing. And one of the things they kept talking about was the fact that they fail. They fail often, they fail early, and when they fail, they pick it up and they move on. They don't just, oh, I failed. And it's not like, oh my gosh, you failed and you're going to get called on the carpet and screamed at. That's a very different mindset. I was a teacher's kid. You better bring home good grades. And I'll share with you that I was a kid who struggled with learning. And I've said that to a couple teachers here and they looked at me and they went, what, you? Yes. I am the one who was lucky because there's a teacher who paid attention to me when I was little. My mom was a teacher. Kindergarten was not required, and it was half day back then. So what they arranged was when my mom moved to that school, when I was going to kindergarten, I went to the morning half of kindergarten. I had lunch with her 5th grade class. I was kind of like their class pet. And then I went to the afternoon kindergarten class. The morning teacher looked at my mom and said, Terry, she's bright. Something's not connecting for this kid. I couldn't read or write at all. The afternoon teacher, I sat against the back wall all by myself. I was that kid in her class. I was the bad kid. I was the disruptive kid. And she told my mom she just needs another year in kindergarten. My mom listened to the one who said, Terry, go take her and have her, get her evaluated for education issues. They came back with 3 learning disabilities, one of which was extremely severe dyslexia. Yeah, which is why I couldn't read and write. And if you talk to my dad, I still can mess with him on that one. He's probably a little scarred because he thought I'm extremely strong-willed and stubborn. I've gotten a little better as I'm older. Not great, but a little better. And he thought I was just being stubborn and wouldn't do the work. What if that teacher had had that fixed mindset and that was the one they listened to, the one that said, no, this kid's just a bad kid. She's just causing trouble. I can't imagine how different my life would be. I've been married to my husband for 19 years. He is my partner and he's my best friend still. I met him when I moved away to college. I can't imagine the direction my life might have taken. But she thought there was still something there. we've got to think there's something there to keep picking ourselves up and working. There's a great book, and I've read it myself. I have a marked up copy, by a lady named Carol Dweck, and it's called Mindset. And what she talks about is that the mindset we use really has a lot of effect in our life. Because what she says is that it depends on which way we go. Do we think of things as bad and I failed and oh my gosh, or do we look at it as a chance to learn and move forward? Now I'm going to highlight a couple of these things, and I know it doesn't always show so great on a wall, so I'm going to totally scrub this swivel cam probably. But they talk about the fact that are we looking at it and saying the most important thing is for me to look smart and be right, even if I'm not? Or is it more important for us to learn? Growth fixed. Fixed lives to look good, to look right, to be the one that did it the best, even if they didn't do it right. And if they did it wrong, they're certainly not going to let you know, because that would be an embarrassment. That would be a terrible thing. This person with the growth mindset wants to learn. And you know, it's one of those things that sometimes you don't even realize where you are, but sometimes you can look back and see where you were. I was probably more in my fixed mindset 4 or 5 years ago. And as a teacher, I decided it was time to do some things differently. And I actually felt the need to go to my principal and ask for permission and say, look, I'm going to try this with these kids, and I don't know how it's going to work. And I promise you, I've thought about it, and I've worked it out. And if it doesn't work, I will pick myself up, and I'll redo, and I'll try again. But I need you to say that this is okay for me to do, because it's going to look different than anything else probably going on right now. And I was blessed. I had one principal who retired 2 years ago, and I have a new principal. Both of them are okay, because if you come into my classroom, it's a disaster. There is cardboard, and there's plastic, and there's foam, the pool noodles that you float on. We use those to build stuff. There are hot glue guns in middle school. So far, nobody's burned themselves seriously. I keep kind of waiting for that and to get yelled at. But they know they're there. We have tools in my classroom. We have pliers. We have screwdrivers. We have all kind of crazy things in my room. Because they're building. They're creating. And I had to get permission to shift it. Because for me, A doesn't necessarily mean your project worked. Did you keep trying? When it didn't work, what did you do about it? Did you go, this won't work, and throw a temper tantrum? Or did you pick yourself up and go, okay, this didn't work. What didn't work? Why didn't it work? And how can I adjust it? We've got to bring our kids to this side. Because if we just feel like if we're successful and we're the best in life, it's not going to go as well for us. We may project this image of we're doing great, but it's going to be wrong. And that's what we're looking at, having to make all these shifts. She talks about things in terms of parenting, and I have some questions I'll show you can use with your kids to kind of help with that mindset. She talks about school. She talks about business. She talks about sports figures. One you may be familiar with, I think he's retired now because I'm not a tennis expert, but she talks about John McEnroe. Remember him and throwing the racket? So where did he fall, you think? Was he growth or fixed? He was completely fixed. And you know what? One of the things they talked about some quotes and things he said. He stopped having fun.
Yeah.
I'm so stressed. Yes, I'm so stressed. You know, I know being a teacher is stressful. I can relate to your teacher. I know, because there are 1,000,001 demands. But I wake up in the morning and I want to be there with kids. I want to stay connected to kids. I'm willing to fail with them if they're willing to fail. And it took some time for my kids to get used to this, okay? They've gotten annoyed with me because I don't give the answers. They build robots. We have these little robot kits with wires and sensors and all kind of crazy stuff. And they build them out of cardboard. They have to come up with a plan of what they're going to build and how it's going to work. They have to tell me, and then I go, that's great. Here's the website for the company. Go figure out how to hook it up and program it. And they look at me like, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? The first little while, they are so aggravated with me. Miss Hebert, this is not working. Yeah, well, I'm Mrs. Hebert now, so, you know, they don't do Marcie. But I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know. Where can you find the answer? I guess I could Google it or look on YouTube. I bet you could. Go ahead. And I keep moving around the room. Here's the thing. When I first started that with them, they were like, I'm going to kill this lady. You could see the look. Okay, like I'm going to take her out if she doesn't tell me how to do this. But what happened was, after they failed a little while and they figured it out, totally changed the dynamic. I had a kid look at me and say, can I take a victory lap around the classroom? And I'm going, this room's a zoo anyway, go for it. So, and I looked at her and said, what do you want to do? You want to run around the classroom because you're excited? I said, sure, you can do that. She went, no. I want to run up and down. We have closed hallways with, classrooms across. She wanted to go to each door and knock and tell the teacher she made her robot work. I was like, but isn't that what we want for our kids?
Yes.
That's what I want for my child. And I'm standing here telling you that as sometimes a parent who doesn't always see that for my own kids sometimes. So sometimes we help provide those experiences. But I was the mean lady who was torturing them. I tell them that all the time. I'm the mean teacher. No. That's what they say after they figured it out. Before, they're probably going, yes. But giving them that chance to fail and to work through the failure and to figure it out. And I'm going to say this, and please, parents, don't take offense to this, but sometimes, and I've done this too, so I'm not just saying you, sometimes we rush in so quick and we want to save them. Because it hurts us to see our kids hurt. There's nothing that hurts worse than when your child is hurting. And sometimes we've got to let them experience that failure. And that's not a popular thing to say to parents. But when you stop and you step away from the situation and you're not in the middle of one of those moments with your child, you go, yeah, we're having issues. And I don't know if they're the same here, so I can speak to the U.S. We're having issues with parents who are so quick to rush in that their kids don't know how to take care of themselves. I have kids that don't know how to come to me and say, Miss Avery, I'm having trouble with this, because they don't speak up because their parents are there before they can talk. You're laughing, but I mean, there are times I'll post grades. I haven't even hit the button to post for 2 minutes, and the emails are flying in. They haven't seen the kid yet that day. Talk to them first. And I'm not saying as a teacher that I don't want to talk to you. I do. But I also want you to talk to your child. Give them the chance to tell you why that was a B or a C or lower. Because sometimes we've got to let them live in that for a moment. And it's hard. I know it's hard. The U.S. they've made a term called helicopter parents. Meaning they're so close to you that it's like, and I mean, sometimes as teachers, you get a kid and you love the kid, but you're like, oh, that parent is going to be all over me. I know it. And think about in my classroom where it's so different. They're like, what is going on here? However, the flip side of that coin, and the part that lets me know I'm on the right track, and I truly believe that, is when parents tour our school, or they come through open house. And my principal comes back to me later and he's like, all I heard about was what was going on in your room. Because I don't tell the story. I'm dressed nice, I stand on the side. I have kids in the room. Work on your robot while people are coming through. Work on your obstacle course with Sphero. Write your program, do this. And I let the kids tell the story. It's really their story. It's not my story. I'm just the one that tries to point them or kick them or nudge them in the right direction depending on the child. But we've got to be careful. We've got to let them experience chances to practice that growth mindset. And I can't speak, of course, I don't totally know this whole system here, obviously. But one of the things I will tell you, and it's probably going to sound weird coming out of the mouth of a teacher who's a parent, I'm not as worried about the A as what you learned. And that's a painful thing, and that's a statement. Because you say that and parents go, but it's got to be straight A. I know. And I'm in a situation where in my state, except if they take it out because the budget's bad, right now, as it's still written for a little while longer, there's a law that any child who scores a certain level on the ACT test and has a decent enough GPA gets free state college. Yeah, except they were about to cut it severely because of budget issues. But I'm telling you that. So what do I do with my high schooler? Patrick, what's your GPA right now, sweetie? Well, what's going on in that class? That's what I said. He's in 10th grade now. It's his job. My job is to kick your butt when you're getting off task. Because sometimes we still have kids whose parents are taking care of them so tightly. My sister teaches English in college. She's got college parents wanting to call up and argue with her about a grade. Look, oh my God, I swear, you should hear the stories. And she's not the only college professor having that problem. Because we don't want to let the kids screw it up. And they'll call in the U.S. at 18, that's the child's data and information. So like the child has to sign off for the parent to talk to the teacher, and the parent has to show up with the paper in hand, signed. They have some that show up. I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But if we don't ever let them learn, how is that kid going to function? So is mom going to his job interview? Think about that for a minute. Is mom going to the job interview? Because if you've taken care of them the whole time, how is that child going to speak? Because I've taught kids that didn't know how to speak. They didn't have a voice because mom and dad had a voice for them faster than they could ever formulate a question. It's sad, but true. So these are some questions, and like I said, I'll get you a copy of this. If you want to take pictures, I'm okay too. But these are some things you can ask. Instead of focusing on the grade, what did you do today that made you think hard? Ooh, and they don't like to think hard, folks. I tell them that all the time. Ooh, Miss Hebert's making you think today. And they go, yeah, again. What happened that made you keep going? What can you learn from it? What mistake did you make that taught you something? You see, we need to fail in front of them. As parents, I often feel like I have to be that guiding one, the one that does it all right. As a teacher, there's been that pressure. But I've come back off of that pressure. It's okay. I perfectly am capable of looking at my kids and go, I screwed up. I tell my kids that. I stand in front of them. I screwed up again. It happens. Let's fix it. Because they don't hear that message enough. And then some of them think we have to be perfect in life. You see, that thing about depression caught me, because part of it, I think, is that we're not connected like we used to be. But I wonder if part of it is this extreme pressure to be perfect. Because I've taught kids who had to be perfect. There's one, I love the child. I would lay money I don't have to bet right now that Dad helped him on a project he was struggling. Can I prove it? Nope. I'm not going to die on that hill, as we say in teaching. That's not the hill I choose, the battle I choose to fight, the hill I choose to die. I can't change that family dynamic. But I can continue to push kids to try and fail and safely make mistakes. Because here's my thinking as a parent. If my kids can tell me they made a mistake on the little things, and it's a safe place, I hope that when they do, notice I say when they do something stupid growing up, they feel like they can come and talk to us. Because I don't want them to go to somebody else, and I don't want them to sweep it under the rug. Look, she's like, yes. Well, I'm glad y'all are okay with me, because I was like, I may rattle some cages today. And that's okay. These are the things we want to ask. How did you solve it? What did you try to do? Did you think of something else you could do? How else can we make this happen? That's what we need to be asking. These are the questions. And it's a total flip. It's a total flip, and it's hard. I'm not standing here telling you it's easy and you're going to go home and it's going to be just woo. It's not. And as parents, we second guess ourselves every day if we are doing the right things. Because the biggest thing, the thing we love the most, are our children. And you're not picking, you're not sending the best kid to school and holding the one that's not doing so great and hiding them at home from us as teachers. You send them to us as they are, and we love them as they are. But it's our job to love them and take them. Again, I'm going to send this to you, but some other strategies. Don't let them say, I'll not be that smart. Let them say, I'll learn how to do this. One of the things I'm working on, I'm formulating a goal list for me as things settle down a little bit down the road. I've got to start learning another language. It's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be easy. They taught me how to work around English with my disabilities. I don't quite know how to do that or maneuver it. But I need to work on it. And even if I'm not good at it, I need to work on it. We've got to find the things we care about. I told Marlon the other day when we were touring, I love to take pictures. I'm not professional by any means. but I have one of those nice digital cameras, and I was switching lenses on it. And at one point, I was like, wait, I gotta switch the lens to get a better picture of this. And I told him, I said, you may have to kind of boot me along, because I can just get the camera out and stay in a place. And we were up by Big Buddha in the monastery. Gorgeous. The weather was crazy. The wind was blowing you over. It was misty because we were up there Sunday afternoon. It was foggy. But there was such beauty in that. It's how you look at it. I chose to see the beauty. There were beautiful, it was a lotus flower, right, Marlon? Mm-hmm. That was the one where I made him wait while I changed the big lens and was able to get a gorgeous picture of it floating in the water with the reflection in the water. It's going to be printed and framed and hung on my wall because I just took that moment to practice. I took a class on photography because it was something I was interested in. It's not going to be my career. I'm not selling them, I promise. Not that good. But it's fun, and I keep playing with it. These are the things we've got to teach kids. We've got to watch our words as parents. And when I read the book Mindset, there were some things that struck me that as a parent I wasn't saying very well to my kids. Like I said, trust me, I'm not here in judgment. I'm here in solidarity with you because we're all trying to do the best we can. But once we learn these things, we can start to watch it and be aware of it and kind of change our language with our kids. So I want to do a quick little activity with you just to kind of play. Look at, uh-oh, here we go. So Marlon, can you make sure everybody has just a little piece of paper and something to write with? Marlon's going to be my assistant for a moment. I know, look how nervous you got. What's she going to do to us? Look, she went one and she went, what's she going to do to us now? You're fine.
This one is.
You didn't know you were coming to play games.
Yeah.
Look at
We are the old-fashioned students.
Oh, no.
We are not challenged.
Well, guess what? Guess what? You're about to be challenged. Look, I'm going to tell you the same thing I would tell my students. You're going to have to try. That's all I ask is that you try.
Okay. No, you cannot get a pass, Martha.
That looks good.
There's no pass. You got to try. I promise it won't be too late.
Maybe you
Look,
can
right there.
It's
It's not an there no grade.
Oh, they already have it.
No grade. I promise.
Okay, we didn't say this when we signed up.
Does that mean that I'm supposed to advertise? Y'all are going to tell Cameron to have a last one. I'm leaning for a goal, Cameron. Look at him, he's like, oh. Or they might revolt against me, actually, because I'm making them, we're going to play a game, and they're not real sure.
Great.
So, if you've never seen this game, and I actually have a link to it in the document I'll send out to the emails, okay? This is a little game I was introduced to just 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was really cool enough that I got on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, and ordered it for my own children. The bad news is it came in right before I left for Hong Kong as I was trying to set up my classroom at PAC. So, like, we haven't had a chance to play yet. The little one is not going to forgive me if we don't play as soon as I can keep my eyes open once I get home. So this is a game called Disruptive, and there's a couple different ways that it can be played, but I'm going to show you a very simple one, and I won't even do the sand timer on you, okay? We'll give you a little level playing field. So what they ask us to do is think differently. And so, look, great, here we go, we're going to think differently. So I'm going to give you two objects, and I want you to find a way to combine these two objects into an object. You can do it in whatever way you want. Notice there's not a lot of rules here. Okay? Look, y'all looking at me great. Okay? But I promise you know what these objects are. One's a telescope. We all know telescopes, right? Okay, we know what they do. The other one is a wallet. We all know what a wallet does. Okay? Come up with something that you can make out of these two products or these two items. I know, I had to do this. This is the same one I got.
What?
Wow. So how could you take these two and combine them in some sort of way to make something that works a little differently? Make one object with two of them together. Look, what could you combine? How could you combine a wallet and a telescope? I tell you what, I won't make you do it on paper. Does anyone have any thoughts to be brave? Look, you're thinking, come on. She's like, great, she saw me.
We could take money out of our wallet and go and buy a telescope, probably.
You could. That's one way to think about it. You could.
Okay, so you miniaturize all your credit cards to the point that other people can't see them, but you've got in your pocket something that allows you to expand it in order to have it read at the cashier.
Wow.
Okay, I think you need to patent that idea. I have a friend's husband who's a patent, he's a patent attorney, I might have to tell him to talk to you. That's awesome. Now, she thought what we call out of the box, right? That was out of the box. We want our kids to think out of the box. I'll tell you what I did with them. When they gave me these in a game, I was like, I would take the wallet and I'd like hook it onto the telescope and I'd put like my star maps in miniature, so I had a little thing to flip through and see my maps. I wouldn't have thought to miniaturize credit cards. That's awesome. That's what we want to do with our kids. Y'all, this is a game. I think it's 20, now it might cost a little more for you to get it here, I know that, so pardon me on that part. But I had to make sure that, I was like, Marlon, people can order from Amazon and it comes across right. He's like, yeah, that's easy. I was like, okay. You also can have them take things like this. Here's a high heel. We know what a high heel is, right, ladies? I don't have the skinny ones today, but high heels. Because, you know, when you're 5 foot tall, you gotta look a little taller. I'm feeling it. So what could you use this as instead of a high heel?
Oh, for a flower.
Oh, flower pot! Oh, look, see now, see how our brains start to shift? That's one of the most popular answers. A hammer! We can hammer with this object. Do you see how having a game and taking 15 minutes with your kids and playing something like this? My kids love to play games. They beg, the little one especially. When it's been a really long day, sometimes I have to dig into that last little toe of energy to play a game with him. But you know, I keep remembering that I've only got so many more years with him in my house. And that time is going to go really fast. So even if you have little bitties, and I kind of saw the age span, they shared your information with me so I could see what we were talking about. That time is going to go in the blink of an eye. My oldest will be 16 this month. I still don't know where it went. Yeah, and it's like, boom, and you're like, wait, how'd they get, you know, he's bigger than me. How did that happen? Something simple as this, which helps them to think differently, be creative. That's one of the things companies want. People want for jobs. Wouldn't you want your child to be the creative one who starts a company? Because I think that's where a lot of our jobs are going to be. The people who get creative and come up with something new that didn't exist, those are going to be the future. Because everything else is going to be outsourced to robots and technology. And I mean, it's not going to be a fast thing, but they talked about the driverless cars. They're there. Google has them. They're roaming around around California. There was a big news story when the first one got in a car accident. But they went years and years and years without a car accident, which is pretty impressive because, you know, us Americans are not exactly known to be the best drivers. Some of that's already in the background happening. Google has a group called the X team. Now, they've made a new company called Alphabet, and Google's under it. They've split some stuff off. But the X team, or the X group, their job is to come up with the crazy ideas. They call it moonshot thinking, shoot for the moon. One of their current projects they're doing is something called Project Loon, L-O-O-N. And what they've done is they realize there are parts of the world that don't have access to internet, right? So how do we get it to these remote areas that will never get internet? So they played with some different ideas, and what they came up with are these weather balloon-like structures that they send up, and they figure out the crosswinds to kind of keep them moving within a certain area. And they have the ability to bring them up and down and update the hardware and software. And if you look up Project Loon, you can find out, you know, see the videos about it. But they're providing Wi-Fi in places, and they're playing with it. She talked about that they had notes on when they first started, please, if this is found, it's just a large science experiment, because they had somebody get one in their backyard and kind of freak out and have to call the police maybe, because she said they kind of got a phone call about it. So they had to make sure there were signs saying if found, call us, this is an experiment. Weather balloons. She also said their group is willing and able. If there's an idea that's not popular, their boss called them together, she didn't say what the project was, she just said they were working on a project. And they were talking out their ideas, and they quickly realized nobody was happy with what they had. And so they were asked to go back, and in a week or two, whatever it was, they would reconvene and come back with some new ideas. The first question that was asked when they reconvened was not, what's your idea? The boss looked around the room, or the group leader, and said, "Who's happy with your new idea?" Nobody raised their hand. The project was immediately killed, and they moved on to something else. That's a total different type of thinking. They're doing crazy stuff that we don't even know about. Project Moon is one. The driverless car is another. These are projects that they've been working on in the background and refining and making better. They take the crazy ideas. We've got to have our kids be people that can come up with the crazy ideas. One of the things they told us is they brought in the different, they call them Googlers when they work for Google. They brought in the different Googlers to speak to us. And one of them said that the founders of Google refer to their people. They say the people they want to hire, they refer to them as Peter and Petra Pan. People who don't know that things are impossible. People who are willing to fail and try again and be creative and childlike. That's why schools are having to shift. And so, how do we deal with all of this as a parent? We keep our kids close. This one, I'm going to apologize in advance. The sound is not the best, so you're not going to hear every kid. This is from a teacher's classroom. He does something called, yeah, if you can put that one up because it's wonky, but you'll hear some of it. They do something called the bad idea machine. And they instruct the children to come up with the worst idea they can possibly come up with. Some of these are quite creative. Did it lose the speaker? Let me pause it for a minute. I'm going to pause that for a second. Let him calculate. I'm going to strip out the force swivel camera. It's like, oh. That must be what happened yesterday when I didn't get it normal.
That's the way that.
Aha. It's bad ideas, yeah. We never think to ask for those, do we? Yeah. Oh, come here, you.
Brush your teeth with weird substances. Pyramid's growth. Convince someone would get me 2030.
Translate the Bible into something wrong.
Be a vegetarian for 1 week.
It looks like it's kind of impossible to get away with.
Try to boldly split an infant in front of mysteries.
Write a book teaching people how to read. Split uranium 235 out of cigarette. Make a ladder to the sun.
By the way, that man pregnant.
I gave me.
Nuke the poor ice creams.
Maybe these are big different kind of stars. Pretend to be pregnant and see how people treat you.
Following guests dressed as Jesus and yet between people graduating saying they can you.
Eat a bagel.
The bottom of every table in McDonald's is your teeth.
But only the people who are nuts.
Be a traffic cop and direct people into the freeway.
And marry a Kardashian.
I must say, I really like the last little bit. I thought that was funny. But that's something we don't ask kids to do. Just brainstorm it. Nothing's wrong, just throw something at it. He was trying to get kids to be free with their ideas. So by asking them for bad ideas, it was then okay to come up with the good ideas. This is another game, and I again have a link in the document we'll send you. This is one my kids love. Another one a teacher introduced me to. We were at a conference. I was speaking in Texas last summer, and the speakers came in the night before, and we were sitting all around the lobby, and card games came out, and she pulled out this game, and it's called Flux. And the cool thing about Flux, or not cool, depending on how you feel about it, is the rules constantly change. I know, which is where it gets kind of crazy. So there's a card with basic rules. You know, draw one card, play one card. Well, notice they've now put in a new rule that you draw one, you have to play three. And then there's something called a goal. That's what you got to do to win. You got to get the milk and the cookies card. But the problem is, as people play, the goal can change too. And then there are things, they don't have one up here. Keepers are the things you lay out, you try to gather. And then there's a card called a creeper. which is quite hysterical as adults. There's like death and taxes and fun stuff like that. And what happens is if you have a creeper card, you can't win the game. Unless the goal says that you can have that creeper card. And so it teaches them thinking and strategy and that moving thought to keep going with it. My little one begs to play this every night. That's one of the ones I have to get that last ounce of energy out of my toe to make it and sit, because you can't just, randomly play this. You have to watch what's going on. But it's a fun way, it's interacting, it's spending that face time with your child, and it's getting them to think. So we need to change what we say to kids about what they do with technology. We don't want them to make a presentation. We want them to raise awareness. We want kids to start conversations. Now, that could be through a blog, a video chat, podcast. We want them to join with partners. We want to change minds, make differences, take action. Notice these are just do things. These are big ideas. These are what we call the big verbs, the things we want them to do. And so I truly believe this. Tech is a tool. It's not a learning outcome. Your teachers are starting this deeper journey of bringing more technology in. And it's a journey for them as much as it is for you and your children. Yes, they're not going to pick up a device, a Chromebook, for example, and on day one, they're doing the most advanced thing in the world with the Chromebook. They have to learn how to use it. The kids have to learn how to use it. But your teachers are continuing this journey to take these tools and keep using them in deeper ways with your children. Because with these tools, we can do the things we couldn't before. What's Eileen's last name?
Miss Murphy.
Thank you. Miss Murphy's class has been doing the video blogging with my kids at one of the classes at my school. They have done, the kids are so impressed by it. Because here's the reality. Way over there always thinks it's different way over here. And that's a way journey. I learned that the other day. Okay? But what they've found is how much they have in common. When I was looking for a time period where my principal would let me have a few days or even go on a week of vacation and just give up my vacation, I'm from New Orleans. We have Mardi Gras. Okay? Yeah. So I was like, yes, I have a week off. We'll look at the dates of Mardi Gras. Well, Mardi Gras is your Chinese New Year all the time because they're both based off the lunar calendar. See, that's the kind of learning our kids can make. Because before, when they couldn't connect easily like that, you didn't know that. We live in a world now where it's not hard. They can't video chat live because time zones are pretty brutal. Marlon will tell you when we chat and plan things, it's night and morning for us. We have to kind of time it so that it's not too late for one and too early for the other. But they can use video. They can make videos and send videos. This is the power technology has that it talked about earlier, to change learning. But teachers have to start with the baby steps. They've got to get comfortable, and they've got to get the kids comfortable, and then you continue it. They've made it possible for us to open up our worlds very carefully. Your school uses Google Classroom with the younger kids. That's one of my favorite things. Because Google Classroom has made it where schools can open up by choice to each other. But they both have to do it knowingly. And then you can have kids work across Google Classrooms. One of my teachers wants to do peer editing of papers they write in 6th grade with a school about 2 hours from ours. How much more powerful is it for a child to have a true audience? Because I'm going to be honest, and I'm saying this as a teacher. Yes, they're going to do the work for me to shut me up and get me off your case. They're going to try and keep you off their case, right? Because most kids exist to not have you on their case. And they're going to do enough that you're not on their case. But they want to impress peers. When they're writing and they know another child or the public is going to judge it, that changes the game. We do a media release at our school so that I can use pictures of my kids. And so I'm always one of the teachers asked that, and I said, oh no, I'm very cautious about what I do and how I do it. However, I will tweet pictures out of my classroom. We've had a website, makerspaces.com, tweet back to me and say, Miss Hebert, we love the work your kids are doing. Can you please keep tagging us so we see their work? They've gotten feedback from around the world on projects. There's an app called Periscope, which live streams video. My kids were using Makey Makey, and one group decided that they were going to build, Dance Dance Revolution, which I'm kind of spastic, so I have to be careful how I do that. But they were building a Dance Revolution with Makey, and they colored with pencils to get the graphite to hit, because it's got to have a little bit of electrical charge, and they danced. They danced their hearts out, and it didn't work perfectly, and they realized it didn't work perfectly. So the next day they fixed it, and they did Play-Doh. The little girl told her dad, follow Miss Hebert on Periscope. So I'm periscoping them live, so the video's going out, and her dad pops in. And her dad is able to give live feedback and see what she's doing in class. That's powerful. They've had people comment to them from the UK, from Australia, from all kinds of places, telling them feedback. My kids do 3D printing designs. They've had people come back, that's so clever. Do you know how puffed up that child is that day when they get feedback? I could have told them it was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen, and they're like, yep, good, Miss Hebert. Somebody on social media tells them it's awesome, they're like, that's credibility to kids. And we have to be careful they don't get too caught in it.
Yes, a lot of social media is out of courtesy and motivation.
Yeah.
People give you a thumbs up and a
Yeah.
good.
And they want to like.
And it can be over up in the air,
Yeah.
you know.
It can. And part of that is where we come in. That's the part we watch. Actually, we're going to talk about parents now. This guy works for Google. He's the search guy. I was totally nerded out because I took his class online about Google searching in 2012. And so to get to meet him in person, I was like, oh. He always says we have to ask the impossible questions. Google has lots of great information for us, but it's not going to teach your child to make connections and to create understanding. It's going to help them find the basic information. So they've got to be able to ask those questions and find it. And this is something teachers are starting to work on, changing the way we ask questions. And it's a process. It's not an overnight. But if we start to ask these questions, we push their thinking. So here's the part that scares the heck out of every one of us in this room, right? It's the part that keeps some of us awake, right? 1 in the morning, what are they doing? This is where we start to bring you in. This is the part we need parents to play, and we as parents have to step in. So I'm going to play a quick little video. I apologize, it is a very fuzzy quality, even though it's from YouTube, but it gets a point across.
I feel like a president. Compound A, 42.7% by weight. Compound B.
Once you post your image online, you can't take it back. Anyone can see it. Family, friends, anyone. Remember, think before you post.
So that's one of those ones that makes us as parents go. I'm going to ask you a question, because I asked this to the teachers. Don't say it out loud. Think about the stupidest thing you did when you were youth. Just take a moment, pull that up in your head. And let's think about what would have happened if we had social media. I cringe to think the stupid things we would have done and posted. Yeah, oh, listen to you. Oh, that's painful, isn't it? It's a visceral, like we react to it. But our kids can do this so fast. You know, you grab the phone, boom, done. So you've got to have conversations with your kids. And I'm blessed that they allow me to have conversations with my students and build these relationships. I play videos like this for my kids. Now, I age appropriate and scale it, of course. But that makes it very real when you look at it like that. And I make sure every one of my students understand that you can post that picture and decide that wasn't so bright and pull that picture down, but it's not really gone. You viewed it on your computer, even in the 2 minutes they had it up, there's still a copy of that tucked away in files, and there are people who are smart enough to get to it. Have you ever gotten the notification that somebody posted something and you saw what they posted and you go back to look at it and it's pulled down? You still saw it. You saw it. Our kids are living in a world where that's what they're trying to do, and this is the world they're navigating. And I used to take a different view on it until I read a book, and it's actually on my principal's desk right now because I gave it to him. I was like, you need to read this. And it talks about our kids, and it really kind of focuses more on the American lifestyle, but I'm sure in some parts it applies. When we were growing up as kids, we played in our neighborhoods, right? You had your neighborhood friends, you played in your neighborhood. That was how we learned to negotiate and be social and behave. We made our mistakes with those friends in person. We had to fix them. Now, our culture's different. There are places where, especially some kids in New Orleans included, their parents don't want them to go out and play. Why? Because it's not safe. And I don't like standing here and saying that, but there are neighborhoods that I wouldn't go in New Orleans because I know I'm not belonging there, and there's a high probability something bad could happen. The murder rate is astounding in certain neighborhoods in New Orleans. And so parents keep their kids in, and it's not just New Orleans, but I'll use home as an example. And so those kids now, where do they go to socialize? They're online. They're online. When we were kids, and I was an early 80s kid, we went to the mall and hung out with our friends. Now, I was blown away by the number of malls here. But still, yeah, there's a mall every corner. I'm like, whoa. But here's the thing. In the U.S., they're putting rules in at malls because the teens were gathering and getting stupid and behaving poorly, making silly choices as they try to impress each other and navigate how to behave and how to function in society. And so what have they done? They've put up rules. There are certain malls you walk into, and there's a big sign at every entrance. If you are under this age, you must have your parents with you. So those are the places we went to meet face to face. We went to the skating rink in the early 80s. Those are closed now. We went to the bowling alley. That's closed. Where are our kids going to go? And so they're making those social connections online. And as adults, we see it through one lens. But these kids are seeing it very differently. And there's a little boy she talked about in the book that really struck with me. And she talked about a little boy who lived in a very poor area in the country, but he was extremely smart, which was extremely unpopular to be smart. And so the little boy was really smart, and he went to the gifted school. His sister didn't. He had to learn how to negotiate social media in such a way to still be able to communicate with his friends who were gifted, but to not tick off the neighborhood kids and look like a nerd that they would be mean to. Think how difficult that has to be. That struck me to think, how does he do this? At least face to face, you can read the body language. How many times have you read something online and you thought it meant one thing until there was an emoticon? Or you read something without the little face and you went, what the heck, is that a joke? They don't have those cues we have. So for us, it's really scary, but this is the world they know. So we've got to educate them. I have a saying with my kids. My mom is the kick butt one in the family. She was a teacher. You don't mess with teachers. We're probably the meanest parents, right, Andrew? Because we like to work with kids all day. So no, you're not going to do that. And then there was my grandmother. You didn't mess with the old Catholic grandma, okay? You know, she was going to probably pray you into trouble. We used to joke about her hot line. You know, she'd pray for something to happen. So you didn't mess with Mama, okay? I always tell kids, whatever those two figures are that you would most want off your case, if you would not show that picture in front of your parent, whether it's mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, whatever person is that key role in your life, then you need to not post it on social media. How many of you have daughters? Andrew, I'm going to scare you in a minute, I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest. It scares me for little girls. And I'm going to be point blank with you. This world has sexualized so much of life. And our little girls feel like they have to take pictures with their shirts cut really low, the kissy faces, and the poses, kind of like she is in this picture. We've got to set expectations for our kids. You know, in America, they're having trouble. There was a big outlash against Target because little girls' shorts were all tiny. And I'm not talking about they were just cut really short. They were the right size, but they were cut. Yeah. It's absolutely the objection problem. Yes. So as parents, you're trying to deal with that. You're trying to deal with social media. You got to start talking to them, and it's not comfortable conversations. You know, my niece is very close to me. She's my niece and my godchild. We've had a lot of conversations about this growing up. She would talk to me, and it's not easy. And as parents, we're like, if I just wait, that I can put this off because they're going to be older, and I'll wait till they're older. We've got to start talking to them in age-appropriate terms. Talk to them before they hit those points that are those crucial points. Yes, they are listening. We don't feel like they are. I promise they're listening. Now, does that mean they're going to do exactly what you said? No.
They already not doing it.
Yeah.
And they're fine.
And that's scary. Like I said, I see kids and I'm like, my mama would have never let me out the house like that. She'd have grabbed me by the ponytail and yanked me, okay? She was a teacher. She thought, oh. And your kids feel the pressure to keep up with the other kids. Yeah. And you become the tough parent or the mean parent. Well, I'm here to tell you, do it. Don't let them, nobody else's parents do that. Let me tell you what I did to my children, and I was the tough mom. I teach at my kids' school, which sometimes makes it tough for them. It's a rough spot when your mom's the teacher, and I teach them and their friends. My oldest didn't get his cell phone until he graduated 8th grade. Mom, I'm the only kid in 8th grade without a cell phone. That's nice. But Mom, and I looked at him and I said, are you paying the bill? Well, you can give it to me as a birthday gift. I said, and who's going to pay the bill every month after? Because your birthday is only 1 month, kid. Well, Christmas present. I said, Christmas is 1 day. I always joke about cell phones as the gift that keeps on giving. It gives you, the parent, a bill. And I'm not saying don't have them, but set the ground rules. For my family, it worked. Now, we also aren't in a place where kids are on like mass transit and stuff. You know, we're in a place where you got to get in the car and take them places. And that makes a difference. That changes the age. But don't let them sway you with the, but everybody else's parents are doing it. Because I hear parents, well, I gave in, they complained. So, they didn't pay the bill. And I make sure he understands, yes, you got a cell phone. It came with rules. The minute your grades slip or you do something totally stupid, and when you do something totally stupid, you will. And I let him know, you're going to screw up. We're going to take it away. You're going to fix it. We're going to give it back. You're probably going to screw up again later. This is a constant negotiation, kiddo. And I always tell him, you don't like the rules, I understand that, but this is our house. Dad and I pay the bills. When you're 18 and you can pay your way and you don't like it, you can leave, sweetheart. Because I love them. But I keep explaining to them, we do want them to leave at some point in life. You know, I don't want the 30-year-old. It's a what? Okay. Sorry, that's not a sound. It's okay, I just didn't, I really was like, what is that? I'm okay with being the tough mom. And you've got to pick the battles that matter to your family. We can get away with cell phones delayed. My youngest, this is going to be an interesting battle because, see, 8th grade used to be at my school and then you went to high school. Well, they moved 7th grade to high school. So I'm sure he's expecting that at graduation he's getting a cell phone this year. We'll see. Because here's the thing, they're two different kids. The oldest one, don't you think he's going to hang behind the line. That little one's going to see how far across the room he can get and dance. I'm not sure he's ready for that responsibility. I don't think he is. He'd disagree, I'm sure, but it's my job to figure it out. And maybe the rules are just going to have to be tougher on him, because he's sneaky. Talk to you, kids. What are your expectations about dress, about the pictures they post? I'm going to say something that's not popular with kids. The phone is mine. Dad's mine. We pay the bill. I have every password. I have the right at any point to take that phone and look through it. And I'm going to show you some scary things that the kids are doing that you need to be aware of. Who's going, yes? You gotta set your rules.
There was a mom, I read the contract, which.
Yes.
Did you read that?
Yes,
That's
that was
awesome.
an awesome
That's
contract.
awesome. I have to dig and find it.
If you go
She
back,
gave an iPhone to her child.
it was mom, if you Google it with the keywords, probably mom, iPhone, Christmas, and contract. Her contract was amazing, and I used some of her ideas, because she talked about when you screw up, we'll take it back, you'll fix it and earn it back, we'll give it back. She told him ahead, you're going to make mistakes, but these are the expectations. It's probably about 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
Because it was before my son got an iPhone. I was like,
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Exactly.
And do you know what I did because of what I read? I didn't use her exact contract, but we sat down, not with the little one, my husband, my big one, and myself, and we talked about what are the acceptable parameters in our family. What is it you want to do? What do we agree with? What do we not agree with? What do we expect? Because otherwise, they think whatever everybody else is doing is okay. And I know it's not fun when they're in the teenage years railing against you, going, but everybody else does it. And I always say, but you're not everybody else. You're my child, and I love you, and I have to do what's right. I have to do what I think is right. Dad and I are going to do what we think is right. You know, that team approach is huge. Because they can't get around us. They've learned we're a wall. Because the little one loves to work us, and he tries. The big one never did very much. But the little one's going to go to Dad and say, well, Dad, Mom said. Mom, Dad said. And he plays that game. And so when we meet in the middle and we go, he's like, he's kind of figured out by now that that's not the best approach. But I'm sure he'll try it again because he's going to keep going. He's stubborn. Did you have a question?
I did. And maybe I'll talk about this later, but like right now, the furthest we've discussed about online safety with Mary is about bullies.
Yes.
And she knows and some of her friends, and they're great. They're on Facebook and stuff, and I'm like, no, you can't have an account. But it's like, so we talk about bullies and online bullying, but then the furthest I've gone beyond that is there are dangerous people.
Yeah.
But it's like, when do you start?
You start gently like that. They're dangerous people. And as you expose them to new abilities and new limits, you continue the conversation. But see, the fact that you're starting with her now is a good thing. Because you've got to build that trust between them. And even, like I said, the studies show even when we think they're not listening, they are listening. They're not listening the same, and their peers do have more influence. But they're still listening. And what we've got to come at it with is a forgiving and a how do we fix this attitude. Because they've got to screw up. Think about it. We didn't get through it without screwing up. And again, we didn't have all these opportunities. So God, I probably got myself in big trouble. Let's see. Okay. So I'm putting this picture up, and like I said, it's adults here. He says, hey, babe, can I have a waist-up picture just for me? I don't know. What if you share it? You don't trust me? I do. I'm worried. Come on, just one picture. We know this is happening. Here's the problem. The laws and the realities don't always mesh. In the United States, in many areas, if a child, and I use this example with my 7th and 8th graders, and their parents do know ahead of time that we're going to talk about this. I look at the little girls and I say, here's the deal. It often starts something along these lines. A boyfriend pressuring. Send me a picture. Come on, just one, please. And they, no. And then they give in. Where I live, if that child, that female, takes a picture, and male too, but it often goes this way, what happens is she is now in possession of child pornography. That's a serious offense, folks. That can get you to have the little white cards with the picture and all your information. You have to mail it to all the people around you. Yeah, it's a big deal. The minute she sends that picture, she's added the charge of transmitting child pornography. And if her friend has it, he's now in possession too. The laws are trying to figure all this out, but we live in a world where the technology is moving faster than the laws. And some areas are starting to understand that they're kids and they don't always make smart decisions. But some haven't figured that out yet. And as a school in the U.S., we get the cards. There's a bulletin board in the main office where all the little pictures hang of the people and what they've done in the areas. And they have to be so far from schools, okay? But we still know who they are. And in my neighborhood, if there was one who moved in, they would have to send a card. There's also websites where you plug in your address and they'll show you where the sex offenders live. Here's the problem. There are stories of young men or women who got tagged as sex offenders. A college is not going to touch you. They don't want you on their campus. And so there are people who had these great scholarships and rides to college, that something went down, usually with a girlfriend, and now they just ruined their future. And see, this is the piece here. I'm afraid you'll share it. There are stories all over, if you Google, of one of those deals where she sent the picture and they got in a fight. And when they got in a fight, he shared.
Yeah.
Y'all, there are children that have committed suicide over this. There was a girl that she shared the picture. He got ticked at her because they got in a fight, and he shared it all over. And it passed around where they lived. And she was living knowing that everybody'd seen her nude body.
But I know that, like, I mean, they collect it, like collecting cards.
Yeah.
The guys are sharing them.
But and that's what, you've got to keep your pulse as the best you can. And there's things, kids are always ahead of us, okay? But you've got to keep your pulse. One of the things I do as a parent is I keep reading. Because the media keeps bringing up stories of what's current. I'm going to even show you some about one that they surveyed parents here in Hong Kong. It's an article from last month, or this month. There's a lot of information. We just have to look for it. But you've got to start having these conversations. The way I explain it to children, any part that you would have covered by a bathing suit needs to not be taken pictures of. And I talk to, as they get older, what about when you get married? Do you want that to be known to your spouse that you love, that everyone's seen you like this? Do you want to really put yourself out there? Do you want to have to walk down the street and know that people look at your face and go, oh, I've seen that picture? I mean, look at the celebrities who've been hacked in the U.S.
Yeah, there's a journalist, the trial.
Yes. Yes.
She was free.
They were, and that was even more messed up because she was in a hotel room.
Yes.
And they put something on her door. And the guy was a stalker because she was a celebrity.
Aaron Andrews.
Yes, Aaron Andrews. And you know what? Here's the truth. They gave her a large sum. No sum of money will ever change the fact that she knows those pictures are still out there.
Yes.
They're still out there. Because even though you tell people to take them down, somebody's got a copy somewhere. You know, and we look at, what we see is what they call the visible web. There's also the deeper level, which is the dark web. And so things that might disappear from the visible web are still down there on the deep web. And they will resurface. We've got to have conversations. And I'm not telling you it's comfortable. It's not fun. You know, I also, as a female with 2 sons, don't put it all on my husband. They're conversations we need to have as a family. And it's not fun. But you know what? I've hit that point. You have kids. You're sitting here because of your kids. We all know you've been through childbirth. That means everybody and their friends have been in your face. I always felt like once you go through the experience of childbirth, there's not so much that's humiliating anymore. And so I look at kids and they're like, you can talk about this with us, Miss Hebert. And I'm like, look, I'm old and I'm not embarrassed anymore. Okay? But think about that for a moment. That was probably the most humiliating experience of your life. And so I go, this is a lot easier. Don't try to be a team when you can. Try to have it come from both parents. And sometimes what we find is that, you know, the female parent talks to the girls, the male talks to the boys, but they need to hear it when they can from both parents. They need to know it's a value of both parents. Because hopefully we're trying to transmit our values. And I know it doesn't work with every kid. If we had that answer, we'd be brilliant millionaires. Okay? But we want to continue that conversation with kids. I always tell them that, and I talk about that with kids. You can go hit, 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 boom, and it's posted. And you didn't even take a second to think. Science tells us the part of the brain that is really good at decision making and thinking things through doesn't develop until the early 20s. Great. That explains why we did stupid things in college. But we didn't have social media. Yeah, some of you just, that moment just crystallized in your head, like, oh. Yeah, I know. I have those too. It's okay. We won't talk about them, but we all know what they are in our heads for ourselves. Our kids have the ability to share those moments fast. And they're going to share something stupid at some point. You want to make sure you've built that relationship where they will come. And I tell kids that. You know, you get an inappropriate picture, please go get your parent. Bring the phone to your parent. I've had parents come to me and thank me. I had one who was a police officer. And I started having this conversation when I was the computer teacher 8 years ago, when it was early and parents didn't even know what the heck it meant. And I told the parents at open house, these are the things we're going to talk about. Please sign this. If you don't want your child in these conversations, I will, send them on an errand or something. I'll get them out of the room. It'll be okay. He looked at me, and as he was leaving that night, he said, Miss Hebert, he shook his head. He said, thank you. He said, our parents don't know what's going on, and it's happening. They're going to do it whether we know about it or we stick our heads in the sand or not. So we've got to have the conversation. Tell them what you expect of them. They won't always meet our expectations as parents. But at least if they know what we expect, we can talk about where they failed and how they need to fix it. Oh, something didn't come up. Oh, so here's your topic, bullying. So I'm going to say something before we even get into it, and that's a tricky one because there's not an easy fix for it. First, we need to be clear on what bullying is because there's been a lot of discussion back and forth. So there's some things that have to be there for it to be considered bullying. Okay? It must be aggressive. There's got to be an imbalance of power. One kid who, for whatever reason, is stronger. Now, that could be because I always tell kids, watch a cartoon with a bully. How do they depict a bully? The big, kind of heavy, lumbering kid. My kids were big fans of Phineas and Ferb. I don't know if you know Phineas and Ferb here. How's the bully look? Big, goofy, lumbering kid. In reality, the bullies are some of the brightest ones. Because they know how to do it where a teacher's not going to hear them. They're not going to get caught by the teacher. They're not stupid. They're going to bully in the bathroom. They're going to bully online. They're going to bully on places where the parents are not always and the teachers are not always. So it could be physical strength. Maybe they know something about the child. I can embarrass you, kind of hold it over their head. Popularity is a big one. It's easier for the popular kids because the friends will not challenge them. One of the studies now says that the way to change a culture of bullying is not among the adults. It's not about getting the teachers to go, stop bullying. The way to change it is to change it within our kids. We've got to teach our kids to stand up. And that doesn't have to be to go to you, I'm going to pick on you for a moment, and say, you're a bully and I'm going to tell. That's too much on a kid. Some of our kids would never be able to do that. But if we can teach them to tell someone, find an adult, whether it's you who can report it to the school, whether it's an adult at the school, and it doesn't have to be their teacher. Find the one they trust. Because sometimes they have that special trust with another adult on the campus. There's been so much study of bullying, I'm sure here too, but I can speak to the U.S. And they tell us we've got to change the mindset and the culture of the children's thinking, to take care of each other, to protect each other. And sometimes protecting each other means when the bully is going off and everybody's gathered around, not staying gathered. But teaching your child to walk away, to not participate, to not allow it, to not be part of it. Okay? It can be changed over time. The biggest thing is you want this to be a repeated behavior, a sustained behavior. The first time a kid walks up, and I'll pick on you now, and says, you're ugly. That doesn't make it bullying. It just means they're being a mean kid at that moment. And kids are mean sometimes, even our own kids. There are times I've looked at my child and said, I can't believe you said that to someone. That was really not nice. Let's talk about why and how you should fix that. My oldest is not real filtered very well. And he told one of the other kids at his high school, the kid said something about, did you see my new car? And he went, yeah, it's ugly. I'm like, son, okay, let's talk about why you said that. He's like, well, I don't like that car, Mom. I said, I get that. But he's very proud of that. You didn't need to say that to him. You could have said, that's awesome for you. That would have been a much more empathetic thing to say, that's an ugly car. Like, dummy. Come on, kid. Okay? That's him. He hasn't totally learned that filter thing. But just because he said it once didn't make him a bully. Now, if he went and picked on the kid every day about it, that's when we started to fall into that bullying thing. And it was becoming an issue for us as teachers in the U.S. because every time a kid looked at a kid mean and the parent was right there, they're bullying. And it's like, well, no, that's not bullying. They're being mean. So we've got to kind of distinguish between the mean and the bullying. It doesn't mean this doesn't happen. It does. And it's one of the trickiest ones. Because we're not in those spaces. We're not in the bathroom. We're not in the place where they might get up close to a kid and say it in the ear. They're not going to say it in front of us. They're not the big lumbering goofball that the cartoons show you. They're smart. So we've got to try to change our kids. We've got to talk to our kids about not being part of it. We've got to make our kids go to a safe adult when they're being bullied and say, this is happening to me. We can't let it happen and they just have to take it quietly. Now, it's not always something that gets fixed. I'm going to tell you from within a school, it's not. I wish I could stand here and say I have a magic bullet. Here it is, boom. Boy, would I be rich and retired by then, right? We don't have the magic bullet. But as parents, we've got to keep an eye on what our kids are doing. We've got to report to the school. I know y'all have policies in place. And sometimes you got to let the school. Sometimes you might even have to say to your child, if it's a particular social media spot, get off of it. It's okay to say, take yourself out of there. Because one of the things we've got to teach our kids is how to unplug. You know, I talk about the fact that we live like this. And my house is the same, okay? I have to fight kids for bandwidth sometimes. Because I'm taking, like, with school, we have to take tests as part of these certifications. And it's a timed test, and we have to pay for the test. It's like 3 hours. It's a pass or fail deal. And if you fail, you have to wait so long. And if you fail again, you know, it's a year, I think. So, you know, I was nervous I wouldn't pass my test. Well, one of my tests, when I was taking it, they were using too much bandwidth. You know, more than one device in a hand sometimes. And I'm like, hello? So like my husband took them out of the house the last time I had to take one. It was a 3-hour test. He's like, Marcie, you gonna start your test in a while? I was like, yep. He said, baby, I'm gonna just take the kids and we're gonna go somewhere. He's like, how long do you have? I said, I have 3 hours. He said, we'll be gone for 3 hours and a little change. I said, thank you. Because we're fighting over bandwidth. So I'm not telling you anything that doesn't happen in my house. But I also teach my kids to put it down. I talked to you earlier about the restaurants. My family has a rule. We go to a restaurant, you put the stinking devices away. We will have a conversation. You want to know how painful that is for some of them, especially in high school? What did you do today? How many of you heard that one? See, that's we're not asking the right question. We've got to ask those questions like that. What did you do that was fun? Our kids do the same thing. I know, we feel like we're by ourselves when they do that, right? I love as a teacher when they go home and their parents say, what did you do today? Nothing. Dude, I spent hours planning lessons and you did nothing all day? Ugh, nice to the heart. And you're going, I wrote that check and you did nothing in school? They did something, they're just not talking about it. So we've got to ask the right questions. Dinner, even if it's at home at night around the table, is a great time to unplug. And parents, it's painful for us too. But they do what they see. Kids are sponges. So if they see this all the time from you, and you tell them put yours away at dinner, but you sit there like that, what do they learn? Yes. And I mean, I'm saying some truths, and sometimes they hurt us. Because sometimes I do it too, and I have to go, no, phone away. Sometimes I call it a social media hiatus. I'm like, I can't deal this weekend. I'll walk into school on a Monday morning, and the teacher will be like, I emailed you this week, and you didn't answer. Where were you? I turned my computer and my phone off. You did what? Now, here's how I turn it off. There's that great little feature called Do Not Disturb. You know you can program only the people you most want to talk to, and they can get through. Because I don't know about here, but we don't have phones in our homes so much anymore. We all have cell phones. Well, I have a phone. Because all they do is call you and tell you who to vote for and give us money for this, and they call during dinner. So I looked at my husband and I was like, you can save $50 a month and turn the phone off, and it's a much more peaceful life. But I still need to know that on the weekend when I can't take it anymore, I can turn it off. But my parents, if there's an emergency, can get to me. My children can get to me if they're out of the house. We have to lead by example. And it's a painful one sometimes. But I turn my email off some weekends, and the teachers don't love it because they had a question. You know what? You'll survive till Monday. We used to do that 15 years ago. Isn't it crazy how, like, I don't know about you, but if I leave my phone at home, what are you going to do? I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go get it. Luckily, I live pretty close to where I work. But I have it with me. I turned on international data more so I could have my watch functioning than anything. Like I said, I'm connected. I get it. Sometimes I just take the watch off. You can tell when I was having a day because there's no activity. I just took it off and I left it on the nightstand. The phone stayed with it, the email stayed closed. These years with our kids are fleeting, and I'm standing on the far side of it right now. In 2 years and a few months, I send a child to college, which scares the bejesus out of me. Because I don't think the poor young man is ready yet. We're still working on him. I'm trying to finish baking him, as I say, and get him there. Because he's going to have to go to college, and he's going to have to survive without us. Just like we want our kids to have the ability to take care of themselves with other things, we've got to engender that here. And it starts through modeling. It starts through conversations. Ones that are going to make you squirm. It's okay. Squirm. When they squirm and they act embarrassed, continue the conversation. Make sure they're hearing you. Here's a tip I learned for those of you with boys. I read a book about raising boys. I can't remember the author's name. It was years ago when they were little. And one of the things he talked about with boys is that if I try and sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with my son about sexuality, I'm going to get nowhere with him. He's going to be so uncomfortable. He's going to do all this. Put him in the car and go for a ride. Play basketball. Do something that they're busy and have the conversation. Because they function better like that. The car ride is where I talk to my 2 boys. They're not sports people, so I can't take them out to play basketball. It wouldn't be pretty. But in the car, I can say, and I can tell you that I've been having these conversations with my kids age appropriate and building. My 7th grader was in the car this year, and we were driving home from school. It's just him and I, because he goes to the school I teach at. And he said, Mom, I have a question for you, but it's kind of like rude and embarrassing. And I said, okay. I said, you know you can ask me anything, sweetie, and I'll answer you. I said, I'll answer you appropriately, then I'll answer you. And he brought up a word kids were using. And it was a word, I don't remember what word at this point, but it was a word based around sexuality. It was a word kids were throwing around, and he didn't know what it meant. And he wasn't about to ask the kids, because that would be embarrassing. But as a parent, I was really proud that he felt like he could say safely to me, Mom, I need to know what this means. It's okay for us to say, I don't even know how to answer things sometimes, kiddo, so here's what it is, and I'm going to lay it out the best way I can. There's a book that I absolutely love from the Holocaust era called The Hiding Place. It was written by a lady named Corrie ten Boom. And her family was not Jewish, but they hid Jews. Her family were watchmakers, and they hid them in the house above the shop. And they were captured. They were taken in and found for hiding the Jews, despite the elaborate things they did. And most of the family died in concentration camps. But one of my favorite quotes from the book, her dad said to her, she asked him a question about sexuality when she was growing up. And they were on a train platform traveling with watch parties. And he looked at her and his answer was, honey, pick up that suitcase. And she said, I can't, Dad. She said, it's too heavy. And he said, exactly. He said, there's some knowledge that's too heavy for you at this point in time. But when it's the right time and you can carry it, I'll give it to you. That's how we've got to treat our kids. And it doesn't mean that both of them get the same talk at the same age. Have the difficult conversations. They pay off in the end, even though you're like, ugh. Okay, I know. It's like, I gotta talk about this. But make sure that you do. It's going to be so important for them. For bullying, it's be there, it's report it. It's be aware the best you can of where the kid's going, where are they bullying each other. Watch those places. The problem becomes things like Snapchat where it disappears. Of course, as I've pointed out to my students repeatedly, Snapchat, yes, it disappears. But even before they invented apps to take things away, there were screenshots. So don't think because they say it's anonymous, you're anonymous and no one's going to get caught. It'll come out eventually. It always seems to. So I'm not going to play the video. I just grabbed a screenshot of this website, and I have this in the links for you. I know the school uses Common Sense Media, so when I told them I was going to talk to you about this, they're like, oh, good. They have great resources for parents. Under the Parent Concerns one, there are all different topics. Are curious kids safe online? How much tech is too much for toddlers? What media imagery is stuck in your kid's head? Are they too tech savvy? Again, still, nobody's got one answer. Here's the thing. And I had this conversation with a teacher who said, well, I'm just scared to use the internet at all with children. What if they see something? And I looked at her and said, at some point they will. Most kids will at some point. We have the worst, not worst, we have some of the toughest filters. I'm that teacher that's always rocking the boat because I try to use something in my classroom and they blocked it to the point that they unblocked my laptop gets through the firewall at my school because and they saw I was using it for good purposes. They kept blocking things. We're very filtered. I never let them play games in class. And when I took over the computer lab, they come in and they, are we playing games today? And I go, no, this isn't games class. You would be teaching it if it was games class because I'm not a gamer. But we had one class and they were 15 minutes left and they were ahead of the other class and we were about to go to like a 2-week break. And so I said, you can play games. And it was 4th or 5th grade. And so they were Googling and finding a game to play because many of them were blocked. And I was walking around and I heard, and I looked up and I saw a very inappropriate picture. But I've trained my students. It's not about you're in trouble. I taught them, minimize the picture, get my attention, and let me help you. I'm not coming to punish you. Well, the kid did exactly that. As I was running my way to her, she minimized. And I said, sweetie, she had the panic face, and I said, breathe, you're not in trouble. What did you type in to get here? How did you get here? She looked at me and she said, I Googled games for girls. That was a completely innocent mistake. I'm not going to punish a kid. But as a parent, I made sure I called, I let the office know just so they understood what had happened. I told the archdiocese, hey, you need to block this, you missed it. Which, it's impossible to catch everything. Even with the best of filters, the internet is constantly adding material. You look at the statistics on how fast they're uploading videos, it's insane. Content is constant, so nothing's going to be perfect. Teach your children to tell you. Not in a punishing way, not because I'm coming after you, but because I want to see what you saw and I want to have a conversation about it. Because unfortunately, many kids are getting very mistaken ideas about sexuality and what it should be like and look like because they're believing the media hype. They're believing the hype of pornography if they're running into it or they're getting to it. I was able to talk to the parent talked to the child, I spoke to the child. Very different scene if a child purposely goes somewhere. That's when the school's going to take some corrective action. But the child's got to be able to feel like they can come and say, okay, I saw this. We have a rule in my house. If you're on a computer, which I keep in public areas, I try to keep devices out of bedrooms and things. Every now and then one stashes by me and I'll give it back. But I do, they have a rule. If I'm walking past you and you click to close, you're off the computer for a week. And I don't care if you did it accidentally. You know the rule. So you better choose your mouse clicks carefully when we're standing near you. Because I don't want you to feel, I don't ever want to see click, 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 and 5 windows closed as I walk up as a parent. Because then where were you? And I'm gonna dig in the history, obviously. But kids aren't stupid, they clear the history. And there are ways that you can dig deeper down, but you have to be kind of tech savvy to do those. I make sure my students know 2 histories never truly disappear. And they go, you can see the faces that, what? Time out. Maybe that'll even help be a corrective behavior, because they'll be like, Miss Hebert said that it's not really going away. My mom might figure it out. But we've got to have those tough conversations. Think about the rules. Think about how your kids are using technology. And right now, some of you are sitting there going, dang. So, talk to your spouse. Are we going to change our rules? No one rule fits every family. I can just tell you that for me and my family, that works. You don't click and close. Because what were you doing? Especially if you're click, 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 click. That was 5 tabs, they just closed. What are you doing? This one's a tough one. Okay, sticky one. Here's the truth. It's very hard to be private. Especially when we as adults and kids post our photos and everything else everywhere. We've got to be careful. We've got to think about the services we use and the things we do. There's the big debate in the U.S. right now about the government getting into the iPhone, and I haven't read the story yet, but we're seeing reports that the government says they figured out how to get into the iPhone. I'm not sure if I'm excited about that or not. I have very mixed feelings there. Watch where they're going and what they're doing. You know, you talked about you won't let them sign up for, what account was it? Facebook. Good. In the US, I use this excuse with my kids. I love when you can blame the government. There's a policy, so you have to be 13 to have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter account. That's government law because they're trying to protect the kids. So it kind of makes it easy for me to say that. But tell them, oh, no, this is the age, we'll talk about it. And you may not be ready to set a firm age. You might say, we'll revisit this discussion when you're 10, when you're 12. Because my oldest kid, he'd be okay. The little one, God knows. Okay? He might be 20 before I let him do it. Or I might be old and dead. Here's the newest thing going on, and I have this video link for you, and I'm running out of time because there was a lot of, I could see expressions, and I played all the music. I know. This one, watch, folks. I got the links for you. They are hiding things on their phones if you don't know it.
Yeah.
There are apps that say they're a calculator, and when you, the parent, open the app, it looks like a calculator. And they type in a certain number, and suddenly there's a stash of files, like photos and everything else. Okay? You can, I know, it's hard. This was, I think, a principal or a school counselor trying to educate parents. And I'll share this link with you, you can watch the video. This was on the nightly news in the US not long ago, okay? And there's apps. Now, I don't know every one of these, okay? I didn't make this, but a great teacher in Louisiana shared this with me, and I went, can I share this with people? I'll make sure you have credit so people know who did this. And she went, yeah, share away. Why are they dangerous? Here's the thing. It depends on how they use it. Fine, could be a good app. But are they using it to record something sexually explicit? See? Good, bad. It's how they use it. They have Snapchat, same thing. Good or bad. Okay? And I've got a few other links for you about some things relevant to Hong Kong and what parents are concerned about, so you can do a little reading. And I'm going to share these with y'all too. Yes, ma'am, I've got a document with links we're going to send to your email. I'm going to take care of you. I already made the document. It's ready to go around. No, I understand. I went too long. I saw you and said,
we're all going to go kids.
Yep. So y'all go ahead. Y'all have a great day. I just have a couple ideas you'll be able to see and figure out at the end.
Thank you.
I like the way they mess. You're welcome.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you. And like I said, I'll send you the slide deck, and you'll be able to see the last few are self-explanatory, just ideas and rules and family. Comes down to that.
Do you also have like email address on it?
I do. When you signed up, you gave us an email address.
Yes.
And so they sent me that document. So I'm going to be able to share it out, and you'll be able to actually open up a page for the slides.
I'll put it up in the same place that you put up the other parent.
Yes, I'm going to see you again.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I was too long. Thank you. I hope it helped make sense.
Enjoy Hong Kong.
I'm having a blast. This has been an amazing experience for me. I feel so blessed to be here. You know, it's what I told